Next book that we're going to get into explains why they did not have a Torah. We already read from the virtual Jewish website that their books and their records were destroyed when they were invaded by Muslims. So this is going to give more context. This is Atlas Geographus, or a complete system of geography, ancient and modern, published in 1714. We're going to be on page 39. It says right here at the top. And you're going to start right here. It says, so much for the whites. So much for the whites. So he's letting you know that he's done talking about white people. He must have been talking about white people up here. He's saying, so much for the whites. We shall treat of the blacks when we come to Guinea, Negroland, and the Cape of Good Hope, where they inhabit. Guinea and Negroland. Guinea's in West Africa. We just looked twice at where Guinea was and how the tribe of Judah migrated there and how it's in West Africa. Negroland, when you look at the old maps, Negroland is right above Guinea. So that's West Africa. The Cape of Good Hope, I believe, is somewhere in South Africa. But he's saying, we shall treat of the blacks when we come to Guinea, Negroland, and the Cape of Good Hope, where they inhabit. So much for the whites. He's going to talk about the blacks now. Leo says there are other kingdoms on the southern frontiers of this country which are inhabited by a rich, industrious, and just sort of people. Judaism was the religion of the ancient Africans for a long time and succeeded by Christianity. So he's saying before Christianity, Judaism was the religion of ancient so-called Africans. And we know he's talking about West Africa particularly, because he says Guinea and Negroland right here. Judaism was the religion of the ancient Africans for a long time and succeeded by Christianity. But Mohammedanism, which is Islam, Muslims, but Mohammedanism prevailed in the 208th year of the Hijra, when all the Jews, Christians, and professors of the African religion that could be found were put to death. Yet in process of time, their intestine quarrels made them neglect Muhammad's law and revolt from the Caliph of Baghdad, for which they were severely punished by the Mohammedan caliphs, who caused all their books to be burnt, on suspicion that the knowledge of the arts and sciences prompted them to condemn Muhammad's law. So it's basically saying that the Jews, Christians, and professors of the African religion, all their books were burnt by the Muslims because they didn't want them to be influenced by anything other than Islam. So back in this source, it says the tribe of Judah didn't have a Pentateuch. That's why. So even though he's not really saying anything negative here, after he puts that they have no Pentateuch, we can just disregard that because we know why they didn't have a Pentateuch or Torah. There's two sources already that we just read that explain that Islam, when it came to West Africa, they burned all the books and records and everything because they didn't want them to be focused on anything other than Islam. And very quickly, I'm going to show a 1729 map of Negroland. This is the Negroland map I'm sure you're all familiar with. There should be. It says a 1729 map titled Negroland and Guinea. This is Negroland up here. This is Guinea right here. As you can see, as I've been saying, Guinea was a lot larger. And here's the slave coast. This is where Judah was. So the book we just finished reading, it says, we shall treat of the blacks when we come to Guinea, Negroland. And here we see Guinea and Negroland. He's saying there were Jews there, and their books and records got burnt by the conquering Muslims. And that's why the tribe of Judah in West Africa did not have a Torah or Pentateuch. Now, something else I also wanted to point out in this book before we move on is something on this right side of the page. We're still on page 39. If you remember, at the beginning of the presentation, one of the first sources we read when we started getting into the migrations of the Israelites, the first source we read on that topic said that history has recorded the date and cause of the Israelitish immigration to West Africa after the destruction of Jerusalem. That's pretty much what it said, word for word. Now in this book, Check this part out. On page 39, we scroll down to this second paragraph on the right side of the page. It says, the present Christians in Africa are partly strangers and partly natives, some of them slaves to the Turks and barbarians, and others free. Some of the Jews who inhabit both sides the Niger, talking about the Niger River, some of the Jews who inhabit both sides the Niger derived themselves from Abraham. So there were Jews on both sides of the Niger River in Africa saying that they descend from Abraham. And if you remember up here, at the top, it says, we shall treat of the blacks when we come to Guinea, Negroland. So he's talking about black people, and I'm going to show you in a second that the Niger River was in Negroland. So when we get down here, he's undoubtedly still talking about black people, black Jews. So he's saying some of the Jews who inhabit both sides the Niger River derived themselves from Abraham. Others fled hither from Asia when Vespasian destroyed Jerusalem, or from Judea when it was wasted by the Romans, Persians, Saracens, and Christians. Some were banished from Italy in 1342, from Spain in 1462, from the Low Countries in 1350, from France in 1403, and from England in 1422. These all differ in habit and are divided into several wealthy and numerous tribes. I'll stop right there. So he's identifying black Jews who inhabit both sides of the Niger River. Remember up here at the top, he says, we shall treat of the blacks when we come to Guinea, Negroland, and the Cape of Good Hope. So he's talking about Jews on both sides of the Niger River. On the Negroland map, you see right here it says Niger R, meaning Niger River. All this right here is the Niger River. He said that we shall treat of the blacks when we get to Guinea, Negroland, and then he says on both sides. So we know he's talking about black people automatically when he says that. And then he says the Jews who inhabit both sides of the Niger River derived themselves from Abraham. And he says that they came here to this location after Jerusalem was destroyed either time. And he also says there were black Jews here that were banished from Spain, Italy, England, and other European countries. Just wanted to throw that in there. More corroborating evidence and information from European scholars acknowledging the fact that black bloodline Jews were inhabiting West Africa.